Hello, everybody. Hope you're all having a great Monday. I am just waiting for Dr. Mindy Pelz to jump on. We are going to do a fasting Q&A. She is a leading fasting expert, especially when it comes to fasting and female hormones. She is just a wealth of information, so I'm waiting for her to jump on. Hello, everybody jumping on. So if you don't know Dr. Mindy Pelz, she is a doctor of chiropractic. She's also the author of a New York Times bestselling book called The Menopause Reset. She's a speaker. She's got a very popular podcast called The Resetter Podcast. If you haven't checked that out, it's one of my favorite podcasts. She's recently interviewed Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's one of my favorite authors. He wrote the book called The Biology of Belief. So you've got to jump on there and check out her podcast. Here she is jumping on. Let's see here. Should be popping up. There she is. Yay! Hi, Dr. Mindy.
Nice to meet you. Great. How are you?
I'm good. Very nice to meet you too. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I was funny because I was just looking at what you just posted, the Benjamin Franklin post on fasting. And I'm like, yes, yes. That's all you have to do is read that quote. You don't need me to come on and tell you. Just read that quote.
It's so true. And that's part of why I want to have you on, is because I truly believe that fasting is one of the most powerful medicines. What I see happen so much, and what I did originally when I first got into fasting, is I just didn't know how to do it. I thought it was simply, I'm just going to fast for 24 hours, a couple times a month, or I'm going to intermittent fast daily. And as you know, as you'll get into it, there's so much, it's way more complex than that. So
yes, it is. Yes.
Thank you so much for joining. I was just introducing you. So you're a doctor of chiropractic.
I am, yes.
And how did you get into fasting, Mindy? How did you?
Right. How did I get here? It's a great question. The short answer to a very long experience with helping people self-heal has been that what I started to notice, I've been doing this for 25 years. What I started to notice is that my patients just weren't healing at the same rate they were healing at 10, 15 years ago. And so I've been on a journey to figure out what is going on in our modern world that has everybody, A, with so much chronic disease, B, why are so many people having multiple symptoms? Nobody would come to me anymore with one symptom. They had like 10.
Yeah.
And then why aren't they healing at the same rate? And so I dove into the science, and it turns out that fasting is an incredible way to tap into self-healing.
Yeah.
And I just became obsessed with the science, and I started using it on myself. I started using it with patients, and it just, there was no going back at that point.
Yeah.
So,
I think, and like you said, once you benefit from it and you can feel it heal your body deeper than anything else can, and it's free, and we all have access to it. I can see why I love that she's on a mission, you guys, to introduce the fasting lifestyle to 1 million people, which I just love. You're probably already there, knowing you.
Working on it. I'm working on it. You're so sweet. The one thing that I really love about fasting is it doesn't take time. So you can take the busiest person and you can show them a healing tool, and it doesn't take money. So you can take the poorest person and you can empower them to self-heal. There's nothing else I know. Maybe sleep does that, but that doesn't really work for the busy person. But there's no other tool that can grab it from both those angles.
Yeah, I love that. And right now with what we're dealing with, we'll kind of get into it, but the metabolic syndrome and all the dysfunction that's going on, and that really being the precursor to most of the diseases, the chronic diseases that we're up against. And obviously the thing going around, one of the things that makes us most prone to having complications is being, metabolically dysfunctional. I know that Dr. Mark Hyman just shared some kind of a post recently, and I don't know how recent the study was, that only 12% of the population is actually metabolically healthy, which is pretty devastating. I know fasting is one of the quickest ways to increase metabolic flexibility. So maybe we'll just dive into that and talk about insulin resistance. I think that's probably a really good place to start, and how most of the population is really struggling with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mark Hyman's absolutely right. There was a study that came out last year showing that only 12% of Americans are considered metabolically fit. And at the root of an immune compromised body is a body that's not metabolically fit. So I'm sure you've been doing the same thing. I've been asking myself for the last year, why do we have a world of immune compromised people? We don't necessarily have a viral issue, although yes, that's an issue, but we also have a host issue. And this host that is really good, whether it's a parasite or a virus or a bacteria, the host that is really good at welcoming that pathogen in is the metabolically unfit person. Yeah. So what I always say is that there's two energy sources that we can operate from. One is from a sugar burner, is what we call it, but it's a little deceiving when we say sugar burner. I mean, you are getting energy from the foods you eat, and the other one is you're getting energy from the fat you burn. So you get to decide, do you want to be a sugar burner or a fat burner? Which path? So we've been over here, if you think about it, we've been over here debating what vegan, carnivore, paleo, like we've been Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, like we've been over here debating food when we've been debating the wrong thing. We should be talking about how do we get better fat burners, and you can do it through keto, but really the best way to do it is through fasting. Yeah. It's metabolic flexibility means you can go in and out of a state of burning energy from food and then burning it from fat. And if you can click in and out of that, you are metabolically flexible. And the best way to know if you're metabolically flexible is how long can you go without food? Yeah. Yeah. It's that simple.
Yeah. It's that simple. What do you recommend, Dr. Mindy, for people that are just getting into it? I kind of explained it to my clients as, jump in and see how well your body does. But at the same time, just like you wouldn't go out and run a 10K if you weren't conditioned, you also probably wouldn't jump into a 3-day water fast if you were somewhat metabolically. So I see a lot of people go, my girlfriend, she did a 3-day fast and she lost a bunch of weight. It really worked for her. So I'm going to do it. But they don't have that metabolic flexibility. It becomes too much of a stress, depletes hormones, causes adrenal issues. So for somebody that's just getting started, would you say intermittent fasting a couple days a week is a good place to start?
Yeah. So here's the strategy that I like. Before you even fast, start by stabilizing your blood sugar. Yeah. Okay. So what does that look like? That looks like take the refined carbohydrates out and take the refined sugars out. If you get to that point, you're like, I can't do that. Just bring them down. Don't eat as many of them, and then up your good fat. Yeah. So good fats are avocados, like the nut butters, the good oils, like just make that shift. Yeah. Do that for a couple of days. Then the next shift is you just either push breakfast back an hour or you push dinner up an hour. Yeah. So you're going to take your eating window and you're going to start to work on slowly condensing it down. And the first fasting hurdle that we want everybody to get to is 13 to 15 hours. This is where a tremendous amount of research, especially for women, is showing that the body heals when you go 13 to 15 hours without food. But if you've never done this before, that might be really hard. Yeah. And so we really want you to do it on a regular basis. So you said a couple of days. Ideally, we want you to be an everyday way of living. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's like a muscle in that. Go ahead. Sorry. I think you're cutting up. So it's like a muscle too, for those not listening. So increasing metabolic flexibility really, really helps to start with the intermittent and just training your body to be able to use fat for a fuel source. And like Dr. Mindy said, one of the best things you can do before even starting is just cut the carbohydrates down so your body has to tap into a little bit more fat. You can work your way up so it's not such a stressor, because the whole idea is to not overly stress your body fasting, because it can't. It really can.
Right. Absolutely. No. And we see that in our community, people fall in love with fasting. and then all they want to do is fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
and it can be overdone.
Yeah. And then we've got problems on the other end of that. Yeah. So we're trying to teach people moderation. You know, you don't take your obsession with dieting and bring it to an obsession with fasting. There's really a natural lifestyle that what's so cool about fasting is that you're primitively designed to operate this way. So it's almost like reuniting you with the body that you were supposed to live in. And there's this deep sense of like, this is right. This feels good.
And that's exactly what it feels like. So what would you say your favorite fast is just for helping with insulin resistance? Working your way up to the 24, is that kind of your favorite fast for? Okay. Yeah,
it's good. That's a loaded question, but here's what I'd say is think of fasting like you're turning on a switch. So each time you turn that switch on, now the longer you go, you keep turning on switches. Yeah. So at 13 to 15 hours, you turn on a couple of different switches. You turn on the inflammatory switch comes down. So inflammation will come down. You're forcing the body to like come over to this fat burning place. So you're asking your body to burn energy from fat. You're increasing growth hormone, which is really important for just overall hormone production. Yeah. You're increasing testosterone, which the whole world is low in testosterone right now. So that's your first hurdle. Then after that, the next hurdle is 17 hours. And 17 hours is where you're tapping into a little bit of self-detox and the cells will start to repair themselves. Yeah. I think that's a great place for insulin resistant people because what you want to do is not only get the liver to be a fat burner, and that will help with insulin resistance, but you want to repair all those cells that have been saturated with toxins and insulin. So 17 hours is really good. And then the 24-hour fast is great for gut repair, which also helps. I mean, the microbiome controls blood sugar levels. So that's why we teach people to go in and out of these different fasts so that they can really get all of them. They can benefit from all of them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're talking about the 17-hour fast. For those of you that are new to fasting, just around 17 hours, the body starts to go into autophagy, right, Dr. Mindy, where it starts to eat all the precancerous cells and inflammatory cytokines, and it starts to go into cleanup mode. And so it's such a great way to prevent disease because, you know, we all have cancer cells there's inflammation in, you know, everyone's body. And so it's such a great way to just keep it down and just keep knocking it back and prevent disease. So many, most of my followers are females and they are wanting to know if I'm cycling, how do I know you talk about as our hormones change and should we be fasting during the first or second half? So let's just jump deep into that and talk a little bit about, maybe we'll just touch on before we get into that, the difference between, you know, fasting as a male and a female. I've read, I think it was an article of yours, Dr. Mindy, that talked about how fasting is a bit more stimulating just in general for the female body. It's a bit more sympathetic in nature, where for males, it's a bit more parasympathetic. So the difference, they don't have to be quite as cautious as we do about hormones fluctuating and it being overly stressful during certain periods. Would you just address the two different?
Yeah, so the first thing is that you have to realize as a female, you've got to fast totally different than our male counterparts. And so this is really important in couples that are fasting together, heterosexual couples. It's like, just know this is not a time to compare yourself to your spouse. No. So that would be the first thing I would say. Now, if you look at our hormonal cycle, men have a hormonal cycle in a 24-hour period, whereas women have a hormonal cycle in a 28 to 30 some day period. So we need to fast in accordance with our hormones. So men, they can fast whenever they want. What women need to do is really understand her hormones first. And oh my God, women don't even understand we don't even know our own hormones.
Oh.
Like that. I've been trying to teach fasting to women. I'm like, oh my God, we have to go back to the basics.
Yeah,
so here's the basics, and we'll talk about menstruating women first, and then we'll kind of talk about perimenopause and menopause. So from day one, the day you bleed, till about day 10 or 11, your body's trying to make estrogen. And estrogen really wants you to be insulin sensitive. So you can fast, you can do keto, you can do hard workouts. You'll be great during those first 10 to 12 days. In fact, it'll help your estrogen production.
Yeah.
Then when we move into ovulation, we've now got estrogen at its peak, progesterone is a little bit, and you've got testosterone at its peak. So the goal there is actually to use the hormones your body's already made. So you actually don't want to fast a lot there.
Yeah.
Like intermittent's okay, 15 hours is okay, but you want to use that estrogen. So eat more of leafy green vegetables, more fibrous foods. So you have a whole set of bacteria that break estrogen down. So use that. Then when you come out of ovulation, now you're also in another dip of hormones. You don't have a lot of those 3 hormones, so you can fast again. You can go into longer fasts, but the real clincher is the week before your cycle. When you start to hit about day 21, that's where you actually do not want to fast, because your body's trying to make progesterone, and progesterone, the precursor to progesterone is DHEA. Yeah. And DHEA will make cortisol, progesterone, and testosterone. So if you're putting a lot of stress, which fasting can be a stressor, then your body will prioritize and only make cortisol, and your progesterone will tank. So we only discovered this because we have hundreds of thousands of people that fast together every month. Yeah. And all these women were like, I'm losing my period. Why am I losing my period? And that's when we found out everybody was fasting at the wrong time.
Yeah. I love that you're talking so much about this, Dr. Mindy, because I was doing it and, watching clients and friends, and, it seemed to work really well in the beginning of the cycle, didn't cause it. But when you started to try to do the longer fast, when the body was trying to build progesterone during that last week, it completely backfires. And I really see I know in my own labs, a lot of my clients' labs, is low progesterone, just because stress is such an epidemic right now. And so we have to be so careful to help build our progesterone during the right time and not tank it. Because if we tank it, we're going to have all the estrogen dominance and just be a complete.
Yeah. I heard the other day, I heard progesterone described as the everything's going to be okay hormone. I'm like, oh yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Nobody needs to be missing that hormone.
No, fasting it's not worth it, ladies.
It's not worth it.
Progesterone.
Yes.
So just to kind of recap. So during ovulation, to be careful there when the body is trying to, estrogen is peaking. And that's just a couple days, but to be especially careful during the last week around day 21 when progesterone is peaking. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's for the cycling women. So if you're a faster and you're loving it and you're wanting to do a longer fast, 24, 48 hour, 36 hour fast, do it in the beginning of the cycle when the body isn't so sensitive to stress.
That's right. That's right. The worst, if you forget all of this, it's like, just remember the week before your period, you should not be fasting. You should not be going into keto. Doesn't mean you want to sit on the couch and eat a tub of ice cream, but you really want to mind that that's when stress should go down.
Yeah. Stress should go down. And those progesterone building foods, I know for me, that has been such a game changer to incorporate some healthy resistant starches during the right time to help build progesterone. Otherwise, it just, and especially you start to approach 40, like you said, it starts to go down naturally. You've got to do everything you can to keep it optimized. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about menopause, and then we'll talk about kind of post-menopause and how they can navigate the fasting lifestyle. Yeah.
So over 40, what happens is your ovaries start to make this slow decline, and your ovaries are like, okay, I'm out. I'm not going to make sex hormones anymore. So I'm going to hand the job over to the adrenal glands. And if, many 40-year-old women are already at max stress, this doesn't pan out very well for us. Yeah. So especially in this modern day. But what happens is, if you're not minding your stress, progesterone is going down. But what estrogen's doing in those perimenopausal years is it's doing this. It's going up and down and up and down, up and down. And that is doing a couple of things. One, it's causing toxins to come out of stored tissues, which will create cellular damage, and it's making you more insulin resistant. So I actually think, like, for women 40 to 55, fasting is a godsend, because what we can start to do is bring some sensitivity back to our insulin levels, because estrogen's trying to pull us into resistance. So you can lose weight, you can keep weight off, but then we also can use the principles like of what I just explained to the week before our period. If it's coming, make sure we're doing the hormone building foods like the beans and the squashes and the potatoes. Those kind of things will build up progesterone. Yeah. And so it gives us some control as we're going through those perimenopause years to make sure that the symptoms that women get, like hot flashes, insomnia, waking, you can actually affect all of that just by varying your fasts and you won't end up with all those symptoms.
Yeah, it's so amazing. I know that the relationship between insulin and estrogen is a really interesting one, and how, like you said, if you start to reverse that insulin resistance, then all of a sudden progesterone becomes, if it's low, it becomes more sensitive. So now you're going to get more of the receptor sites of waking up, or if it's too high, you're going to help it detox. So either way, it's great for estrogen.
Yeah, right.
I see some questions about, what about people that are breastfeeding? Should we be fasting?
Yeah. Oh, great question. So yes and no. Okay, and let's do pregnancy and breastfeeding, because those two really go hand in hand. So pregnancy, the answer is no. Just you have other things to work on, and fasting is not one of them. Breastfeeding, the trick is twofold. One, really make sure you have upped your good fats, because that's going into your baby, and your baby's brain is growing. So you got to have those good fats. Then if you do fast, that's kind of cool, because you could get some ketones, and ketones can go and help with brain development. Yeah. So a 13 to 15 hour fast, no problem. But 17, where we're now stimulating cellular repair, I usually say no. And so stick in the lower fasts. And here's why. At 17 hours, when you stimulate autophagy, you also can stimulate cell death. So this is how brilliant our bodies are, is our bodies will say, oh my gosh, this cell is no good. This is going to be a cancer cell, and it will kill it. And it will, as it kills it, there's chemicals in there, there's damaged particles, and that's going into your breast milk and now going into your child. Yeah. But if you stay within 13 to 15 hours, you're going to be totally fine.
Yeah, I love that. I totally agree. People are asking how many calories, or does this or does that break a fast? I know you talked about this, Dr. Mindy, and I know everyone's got a different It really depends on, like you said too, how how metabolically flexible you are, and how good of a fat burner you are. Because for some people, just a little something can probably pull them out of autophagy, while others it's different. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So okay, what breaks a fast? It's probably the most common question I've ever answered. So, but it's for what breaks a fast for you and what breaks a fast for me can be two different things. So I get that we have to customize it for ourselves. Yeah. So the first thing to know is anything that raises your blood sugar is going to pull you out of a fasted state. Yeah. So carbohydrates do that. Protein typically does that. Fat, on the other hand, can keep our blood sugar pretty balanced, and in many cases can make our blood sugar go down. So, so as far as food is concerned, in the fasting world, we don't think about calories that much. We think about macros. So a lot of times we'll break fasts with like an avocado. And it's like you're technically breaking it, but you're not, because if your blood sugar didn't go up, you're still in a fasted state, which is really cool. Yeah, it is. So we do things like, I just had a bunch here. This is my favorite. I should have stock in this company, because I'm always recommending these keto cups.
Oh, I love those.
They're amazing.
They're so good. They're so good. But like Dr. Mindy was saying, for those of you listening, is if you want to stay in a degree of fasting and still get some of the benefits of autophagy and all that kind of stuff. I know, Dr. Mindy, you talk a lot about doing autophagy fasting, where say you're fasting for 17 hours, 24 hours, and then you're eating something high fat, waiting a little bit, eating a little protein, little carbs, mostly fat, and you're going to stay in some degree of autophagy, which has massive benefits. So even if you're not doing just a 24-hour water fast, there's different fasts that bring different results. The autophagy fasting is incredible. It's amazing. That's everybody's favorite, I think, because if you break it with a fat, it kills hunger. So fat will go up and kill the hunger hormone, and it doesn't raise blood sugar.
So you stay in this detox pattern until you actually eat a meal that has protein. And it really has to be over about 20 grams of protein before you get kicked out. So the other common question we get around the breaking the fast is things like coffee. I think I saw somebody in here say lemon in your water.
Yeah.
Typically, these do not break a fast, but we all have different bacteria. Yeah. So you should test it on yourself. And the easiest thing to do is take a blood sugar reading, drink the drink, and then an hour later, take another blood sugar reading. If this second blood sugar reading is higher than the first, it pulled you out of a fast. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good general way to understand for you.
It is. And it's so different for everyone. I know just, people's metabolic response to, say a piece of fruit. It varies so much between each individual. So it's an individual thing. If you're wanting to just take the guesswork out of it, stick to a water fast. Of course, black coffee doesn't break a fast, herbal tea. Yeah. Right. Someone's saying, does green tea break a fast? I don't think
No, it shouldn't. In fact, there's great research showing that green tea stimulates autophagy.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't. It should be fine. Then I see bone broth. Bone broth has protein in it, so there's a chance it could break a fast. So you would want to test it for yourself.
Yeah. So let's move into menopausal women. So cycle hormones are low, but things have kind of leveled off. Menopause, postmenopause. What about fasting for that group?
Yeah. So for postmenopausal women, fasting is like the greatest thing ever. Yeah. And most women, what I find if they're coming to a fasting lifestyle postmenopausal, they have gained weight through menopause. They might be still have hot flashes. It's really surprising to me how many women get on the other side of menopause, but they still have menopausal symptoms. That is crazy to me. Yeah. So you can use fasting to clean those symptoms up. Yeah. So let's go back to those 3 hormones. Well, if you've got too much estrogen, then we want you to fast. And the cool thing is that you don't have to think about a cycle. So you can do the longer fast whenever you want. Yeah. And that's going to help you balance estrogen. Testosterone. So we know a 24-hour fast typically helps to spike testosterone. A lot of postmenopausal women don't have very low testosterone, so that will help there. The trick is we still have progesterone. Progesterone doesn't want you to fast a lot. So the cool thing and the difference between the postmenopausal woman and the perimenopausal and the woman who has a normal cycle is you can throw progesterone building days in whenever you want. And I typically say do it once a week. Pull yourself out of fasting, lean into those progesterone building foods, and just once a week make sure you're not fasting. If you know progesterone is really bad for you, you might do it twice a week, but you don't need to time it with a cycle.
Yeah, I love that. So if you know, Dr. Mindy, that you're testing your hormones and you know that your progesterone is low, maybe you're trying to get pregnant, maybe you're missing periods, would you just say no fasting for a while until you get progesterone where it's supposed to be?
It's a great question because I want people fasting as quickly as they can because the body starts to heal. So, and you're saying they have no cycle. Is that what you're saying?
No cycle. I got a lot of women asking, fertility issues, and you can see their progesterone is just low across the board. Some of them are missing a cycle and they're still fasting. And that's where I tend to, like you say, I want everyone benefiting from fasting, but I tend to pump the brakes when the body looks so depleted.
Okay, so if they're trying to get pregnant, this is a great modification. If they're tracking their cycle, day 1 through day 10, go ahead and do some intermittent, maybe some autophagy fasting, because autophagy will repair the neurons in the brain that control our hormones. Yeah. So those first 10 days, maybe throw in some of that. But then when you come into ovulation, you're going to really bring your fast down to maybe 13 hours. And when you come out of ovulation, no fasting. Yeah. So you're going to go about 2 weeks with no fasting. Then you'll go a week where you can do like a longer 17-hour fast. And then the ovulation period, you can do 13 hours. But then when you're trying to make progesterone, that's when you back off.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. Which brings me into the adrenal stuff. I'm seeing so much, it's chronically high cortisol or total burnout mode. when you see that on the labs, I mean, I have so many people say, should I be fasting? I have adrenal fatigue. And of course, there's so many different levels of different forms of adrenal fatigue. But say you know that cortisol is high. We know fasting raises cortisol. So I think a lot of people right there get scared, but it's a hormetic stress, as we talk about. It can be
I was just going to say,
if we use it right. So if we know cortisol is high across the board, it's still safe to fast. Are there any precautions that you would kind of talk about with just high cortisol?
Yeah. So again, hormetic stress is the name of the game here. You're going to put just a little bit of stress on your adrenals, and a little bit of stress can be healing to adrenals that are already like in this hyperactive phase. So when you have high cortisol, chronically high, you're not adrenal fatigued yet. You're over adrenal stimulated.
Yeah.
So a little bit of fasting is going to actually help you. If you're completely decimated, like you do an adrenal test and your adrenals are nothing, there's nothing there. Now we may want to work on food and stabilize the blood sugar first and then go into fasting. But hypercortisol, leaning into hormetic stress is very helpful.
Yeah, I love that. I've definitely noticed that too in my clients. So is there anybody that comes to you with any type of, hormone where you just say, you should not be fasting? Like fasting is just not for you right now. I get this question all the time.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple of scenarios. So pregnancy for sure. Pregnancy, just don't, it's the opposite. You should be eating in the morning. Like there's a lot more. I think this doesn't get talked about enough. And I know it's a little bit of a touchy subject, but if you have a pretty severe eating disorder, then you're going to want to do fasting with the help of whoever's counseling you. Yeah. And I think that it doesn't mean that you can't benefit from it, but we have seen a lot of people who are people who used to have an eating disorder come to fasting. They get really nervous. And what they find is they actually do really well. Yeah. But if you're in a total state right now of having a pretty severe eating disorder, I wouldn't do fasting.
I agree. You get to see it trigger so many issues
triggers
there.
Too many. Yeah.
It does. It's just, you got to get healthy before you start to do that. So with fasting, one of the side effects that I probably experience the most myself and also hear about the most, I've got a program where we do one 24-hour fast a week in 30 days, and we're doing all these different things. But a lot of women say that they don't sleep well when they fast. That's definitely something that I notice. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so it could be a couple of things. So for starters, it depends on how long the fast is. You might not need as much sleep, because what is sleep for? Sleep is for repair. But when you're fasting, you're repairing. Yeah. So like when people go on a 3-day water fast, they sleep maybe 3-4 hours. They just don't need as much sleep. So it could be that it's just you're repairing during the day and you don't need it at night. Second thing is a lot of mineral deficiencies show up when we're fasting. So we live in a world where our soils are very depleted of minerals. And so if that mineral deficiency shows up, you might wake up with like a racing heart. Yeah. Yeah. And all that is a mineral deficiency. So loading up on minerals before that longer fast day can be really helpful. Yeah. And then the last thing is, especially if cortisol is an issue for you, as your blood sugar starts to come down, it'll hit a spot where it might sense an alarm button in the body. Yeah. Yeah. And it goes, hey, blood sugar is going down. I know you're asleep, but we got to wake you up so that you give us some food. And in that scenario, the really good hack for that is a little tiny bit of raw honey before you go to bed. Yeah. Just to kind of get your blood sugar up a little bit. Yeah, and it won't pull you too much out of a fasted state. That can make a difference.
I agree. I see that all the time. Just people waking up, and like you said, it's almost that, and then they get the adrenaline going, and then it's really hard to fall back asleep. So yeah, on that. All right, you guys, any questions for Dr. Mindy? I know I asked her a whole bunch. And then we'll announce the winner and the giveaway. I see a couple comments coming through. There were so many when we're talking.
Yeah. You know, what's so funny is I see a lot of people asking about like their cycle. It's so fun and so difficult to teach women how to time their cycle, because I don't know if you've experienced this. Women's cycles are all over the place. Like so many women don't have a cycle. Somebody asked about the Mirena IUD. You know, that's a lot of women that have the Mirena IUD don't have a cycle as regular as they would like. So if that's you, here's the way I would look at it. I actually created something called the fasting circle that will be it's in a new book that will be coming out, that it really explains this. But the basic principle is that if you're trying to balance your hormones, let's just take your cycle away. Let's just do a 30-day cycle or 30-day period where you take 10 days to do some of these longer fasts. Then you go into a 5-day period where you do shorter fasts, but you're eating more fiber. And then you go into a 5-day period of longer fasts. And then you go into a 7-day period of no fasting. Yeah. And if you just kind of follow that, I call it the fasting circle, it will start to sync your cycle back up. Because we're meant to have times where we're keeping our glucose and insulin down. Yeah. And we're meant to have times where we shouldn't be doing that. And if you don't know where your cycle is, just start that rhythm. Yeah. And you'd be amazed how the body syncs up.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. And with the progesterone building foods in there, it's so helpful. Yeah. Somebody's asking about, somebody was saying, what should their blood sugar be 2 hours after eating?
It should be the same or lower than it was before you ate. So, yeah. So you want, with your blood sugar, you want to make sure that if you see it go up and then it comes down, it should come down. Yeah. So this is why, have you ever worn the CGMs on the back of the arms? Yeah. Really, really helpful if you guys ever get the opportunity to do a continuous glucose monitor. So helpful because you can see how quickly your blood sugar comes down.
Yeah, it's super helpful. Someone's asking about during menopause, should she do keto flex?
Yeah, she's watching Ben's stuff, huh? I love it. I'll have to tell him. He'll be so happy. Yeah. So yes, Keto Flex is definitely a beautiful example, and Ben's a great human with an awesome book, a great podcast, and that flexing in and out is really important. Now, this is to this point, what you want to understand is that just if you've never heard about fasting and you're like, oh my God, I've been over here trying to figure the perfect diet out for me. I never realized I should be fasting. There's excitement and you'll start to learn how to click over to being a fat burner. But we're not meant to be a fat burner all the time. We're meant to flex in and out. And that's what Ben's book is about, is keto flexing in and out. It's good for everybody, but especially as we go through menopause, because we become more hormone resistant. And it's like we have to push on our body a little bit and then retreat, and then push and then retreat. And that's where the progress will be made.
It is. And the pushing all the time is where the depletion happens. So for those people that get excited about fasting and they don't replace those glucose stores on occasion, you just see it backfire all the time. Yeah.
Agreed.
Questions about exercise, Dr. Mindy, and if there's any contraindications with fasting and exercise.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my general rule on fasting and exercise. It's phenomenal to exercise in a fasted state. And this is if you're doing the shorter fasts, the intermittent autophagy 24-hour fast. If you go and you work out in a fasted state, what you're doing is you're forcing your body to use the sugar it stored years ago, and weight loss is going to be better. I mean, everything will be better that way. Yeah. So I love it for the shorter fasts. I don't like it for the longer fasts. And here's why. When you go into the 36-hour, 48-hour, 3-day water fast, that's stressful on your body, and your body goes into this real like inner healing state. And I don't want you taking supplements. I just want you just honoring that nurturing moment. And exercise, you go for a walk, but exercise can be too much stress for the longer fasts.
Yeah, doing everything you can to stay in that parasympathetic mode while you're doing the long fast is so helpful. Someone was asking about fasting and PCOS, which I love that they brought that up, because insulin resistance is really kind of at the heart of PCOS. So
Yep. Fasting is incredible for PCOS. PCOS being the #1 hormonal issue. Okay, let's think about that for a moment. Whenever I see like a trend, this is how I came across all the menopause being such a problem for women, is I had so many OBs tell me like, oh, I don't even know what to do with these menopausal women. And I was like, okay, how does that work? So with PCOS, when we hear people get up and say it's the number one hormonal problem, we have to ask ourselves why. What are we doing in today's environment that has so many people with PCOS? And there's two reasons. One is insulin resistance, and the second is toxicity. So we can resolve insulin resistance with fasting, doing it the way I just taught it, doing it around your cycle if you get one, and just keep going in and out of the different fasts. That we can resolve it that way, but then you might have to look at the toxicity issue. For PCOS, it's phthalates, especially an increase in phthalates. Phthalates are in your air fresheners. They're in your perfumes. You really have to dive into the toxic piece.
Yeah. And I love so much, Dr. Mindy, that you talk about the different fasts, because the metabolism is so adaptable. It's adapting to everything we're doing. And so if you're somebody who's been doing just a same, 14-hour intermittent fast for 3 weeks, just constantly change it up, throw in a 24, back off for a little bit, do a longer during the right time in your cycle, play with those different varying lengths of fast, because they all have different benefits and the body responds differently to all of them. So if you hit a plateau, maybe you're not noticing that you're really benefiting anymore from fasting, check out another kind. I know you do the 5-day autophagy fasting, which is got to be really different for people that have never done that before.
Yeah. What we're trying to do on my YouTube channel is every month we take a 5-day period and we do a free fasting challenge. So we just did autophagy, and then next month we're going to do the 24-hour fast, so that people can experience it, because we all get stuck in ruts, right? And it's like exercise, we just, I like this exercise. Let me just do it. Let me just keep doing it all the time.
Exactly.
It gave me results 20 years ago.
Exactly. It worked really well in the beginning, and now it's not working. It's not
right. Exactly. We're creatures of habit.
We are. Someone's asking if that's the same. The same goes for postmenopausal women. I think cycling the different kinds of fasts. Yeah. Here, I'll make it simple. Postmenopausal women do what I call a 5-1-1 would be a good start. 5 days a week of intermittent fasting. 1 day a week, you push your fast. Can you go 24 hours? Can you go 36 hours? And then 1 day a week, you don't fast. Yeah. Once that gets easy, then you're going to go to pushing your 15-hour fast to a 17-hour fast. Yeah. So now you're 5 days a week, you're doing autophagy fasting. 1 day a week, you're going 24 hours, and one you're not. And if you can, on the not fasting day, do progesterone building foods, the potatoes, squashes, beans, quinoa, citrus fruits, tropical fruits, like I'm saying, you step out of ketosis. Like, we're really wanting you to feast on foods that feed progesterone. Then you'll be fine. It makes such a difference. I know for me, I just played with that the last couple of months, and if I don't eat a lot of those progesterone building foods, I can see it on my lap.
Crazy, right?
It's amazing. Yeah, it's so amazing.
It's really crazy.
Somebody's asking best way to measure. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, why don't we teach 13-year-old girls this?
I know. Somebody just said, should teenagers be fasting? And it's one of those things where I just wish we were learning these tools, because they are some of the most powerful healing tools, but they are being misused by people that, they're doing it for the wrong reasons, taking it too far. You gotta have a healthy balance with it for sure.
Agreed. Yeah.
So best way to measure blood sugar, Dr. Mindy, we talked a lot about insulin resistance.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the blood pricker is good. I like Keto Mojo or any of the other ones that you can find that just you prick your finger. That's good. It's cheap. It's, easy to use once you get past the prick. The absolute best are these continuous glucose monitors. The fact that the price has come down, they're accessible to the everyday person is amazing. Yeah. And I think everybody should wear a glucose reader for a month, every couple of months. I do one once a quarter just to kind of see how food is behaving for me. So if you can get a continuous glucose monitor, I really recommend it. But if not, get the little pricker, and that alone is going to be great.
You can buy them on Amazon. I always find as long as you do 2 or 3 different readings, you can kind of take the average. Sometimes you'll get a crazy number, and it's like, that can't be right.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Someone's asking, can cartilage grow and the knee joint be built back up via nutrition?
Through nutrition or through fasting?
Nutrition.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about cartilage. And I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but I will tell you that as women, as estrogen declines, so does collagen. So like women going into menopause, we lose 30% of our collagen the first year of menopause, which is brutal. So we'll see it on our skin and we'll see it in our joints. So where does fasting fit into that? And then I'll talk about food in a moment. Fasting is low inflammation. Think of fasting as you turn off the inflammatory switch. So you're not going to break cartilage down as easily. So if you don't have that collagen in there nourishing the joints, then it's going to be great because you'll preserve the collagen you have.
Yeah.
Second thing is, how do you bring up cartilage nutrition? How do you bring the collagen up? If you eat meat, it's a great time to eat meat, you know, like leaning into some of the more grass-fed beef. It would be, you know, even chicken, get it all natural, leave the skin on so that you get those nutrients. And then good old-fashioned collagen powder can be awesome as well.
It would be super helpful for that. Somebody's talking about getting headaches when they fast. I know that's probably one of the most common things, I don't know if you see, but that I hear is, you know, I got like 15 hours into my first fast and I have such a bad headache.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I say. It's awesome. I know it doesn't feel awesome, but you pushed your body. That's like you pushed your body and the body started to heal, and healing looks often like a headache.
It does.
We've been taught in our culture that symptoms are bad.
Yeah.
When you come to fasting, symptoms tell you what you need to work on. Yeah. So a headache means you're detoxing.
Yeah,
you've hit autophagy, or these ketones are going in and repairing neurons in the brain. Yeah. So drink a lot of water. Use some activated charcoal to bind to those toxins. Yeah. Go to sleep, but keep fasting, because the more you do it, the more you'll clean up that toxic load in those cells. Yeah. So it's a really positive sign. Don't get scared by it.
It is. Do you think minerals for something like that, Dr. Mindy, can be helpful too? Someone's feeling a little off. Okay.
Yeah, minerals would be great as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone's asking about ulcerative colitis, fasting for ulcerative colitis.
Well, okay, so I like the 24-hour fast for anything gut repair. Yeah. So the research is out of MIT that a 24-hour fast will reboot intestinal stem cells. So I found fasting to be the greatest tool for gut repair. Yeah. So ulcerative colitis, more 24-hour fasts.
Yeah, I love that. Someone says they start vomiting and feel very sick if I do a 4 or 5 day fast. That's getting into the deep.
Yeah.
Major detox.
Yeah. So, right. I'm like, hey, awesome. You're doing a 4 day. Like, good job.
Get it out. Get it all out.
So remember that there'll be a point with all fasts. Some of you will feel it at 15 hours. Some of you will feel it at 4 days, where your body hits like a wall. And with hormetic stress, we hope that the body will adapt and get over that wall. Yeah. If it's not adapting, then that's when you break the fast and you say, okay, I did awesome. I went 4 days and I was great. But then at 4 days, I conked. Awesome. Applaud yourself. Yeah. And then do it again next month, or do it again the following month. You wouldn't say, I'm going to run a marathon next week and just start running, 13, 15 miles. You would slowly build yourself up to it.
Slowly build up. And for those asking how often should I do a 24-hour fast or a longer fast, it's probably so different for everyone, Mindy, right? Depending on if you're cycling, if you're not, how much weight you want, what your health goals are. Do you have like a general rule of thumb for people, something to shoot for?
Yeah, 1 day a week at least. Yeah. That's the first place. Get there at least 1 day a week. Yeah. If you have an autoimmune condition or something or a lot of gut dysbiosis, you might want to try twice a week, but otherwise I like 1 day a week.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's announce the winners, and I'll let you go. I know we gotta let you go. You're on a mission to change the world.
I think I got about 500,000 more people to go find.
I can talk to you all day about fasting. All right, you guys. So the 2 winners for my New You program are Pickles Photography and Paleo Girl 99. I'll tag you here, and then go ahead and just DM me, and I'll get you what you need. for the program. And then the hormone reset winner is Brittany Sprenger. Brittany _ Sprenger. Yeah, so I'll tag you guys in there.
Awesome.
Dr. Mindy, thank you so much. I love what you're doing. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. Keep up all the good work and bringing the positive energy. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And I love talking about fasting, especially for women. I love that we have this as a free tool. And so I appreciate you letting me come on and share with your group, because we all win. We all win when women are healthier. And that's what we're really trying to help women get a hold of. So
yeah, it's so true. And you guys, if you don't follow Dr. Mindy, please do. And also check out her Resetter podcast, loaded with, I just listened to your Bruce Lipton. I love that. So
crazy, huh? So many.
And then Menopause Reset. You wrote the book Menopause Reset. For anyone going through menopause, sounds like there's just a wealth of information in there to help you get through menopause. And then we can find you Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. She's all over the place.
Yeah. I'm kind of all over the place. If you want to dive into more fasting, no more than, YouTube's a great place. You can go over there and subscribe. And Instagram, we're doing more over here. So yeah, whatever platform feels natural for you, we're probably there giving you information. So
Thanks. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate it.
You bet. Take care.
Okay. Have a great day.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.